The rain was falling hard on New Busan that night. The colony was quiet. Most people were sleeping in their homes. The streets were empty and dark. Only the lights from a small clinic near the edge of town were still on. Dr. Park Dae-ho sat at his desk inside the clinic. He was tired, his eyes were heavy and his back hurt from a long day of work. He had treated 15 animals today, 3 space cattle with stomach problems, 7 colony dogs with various infections, and 5 birds that a farmer had brought in a box. Dae-ho was 42 years old. He had gray hair at his temples and lines on his face from years of worry and hard work. He had come to this frontier colony 20 years ago, fresh from veterinary school on Earth. Back then, he thought he would stay for only 2 years. But 2 years became 5. 5 became 10. And now, this small clinic was his whole life. He looked at the picture on his desk. It showed him as a young man, standing with his professors at Seoul National University. They had told him he was brilliant. They had said he could work anywhere. The best hospitals on Earth, the fancy research centers on Mars. But Dae-ho had chosen this distant colony instead. He wanted to help where help was truly needed. His assistant, Yoon Mirai, was cleaning the surgery room in the back. She was only 25 years old with short black hair and quick hands. She had arrived on New Busan just 1 year ago. Unlike Dae-ho, she actually wanted to be here. She loved the frontier life. She loved the strange animals. She loved the adventure. "Dr. Park," Mirai called out from the back room, "I am almost finished. Should I lock the front door?" Dae-ho looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost midnight. "Yes," he said. "Lock it. We should both go home and sleep." But before Mirai could reach the door, something strange happened. The lights in the clinic flickered. Once. Twice. Then they went out completely. Dae-ho stood up from his chair, his heart beating faster. Power failures were common on the frontier, but something felt different about this one. Then he heard it, a sound like thunder, but not from the sky. It came from outside. The ground shook. The windows rattled. Dae-ho grabbed his desk to keep his balance. Mirai ran back into the main room, her eyes wide with fear. "What is that?" she asked. Dae-ho did not answer. He walked slowly toward the front window and looked outside. The rain was still falling. The street was still dark. But there was something else now. A shadow. A massive shadow that blocked out the stars. The shadow moved. It came closer to the clinic. And then, with a sound like a hurricane, it landed in the street right in front of the building. The impact made the whole clinic shake. Medical supplies fell from the shelves. Glass bottles broke on the floor. Dae-ho's mouth fell open. He could not believe what he was seeing. It was a dragon. Not a dragon from old Earth stories. This was a real dragon, a creature from the stars. Dae-ho had heard about them, of course. Everyone in the galaxy had heard about the dragons. They were ancient beings who lived in the far regions of space. They were proud, they were powerful, and they never ever came near humans. But one was here now. The dragon was enormous. She was as big as a cargo shuttle, maybe bigger. Her scales were deep blue like the ocean at night, and they shimmered even in the darkness. Her wings were folded against her back, but Dae-ho could tell they were massive. Her eyes were gold, bright and glowing like 2 small suns. And those eyes were looking directly at him. Dae-ho felt his legs go weak. He wanted to run. He wanted to hide. But he could not move. He was frozen with fear and wonder. Then he noticed something else. The dragon was holding something in her front claws. Something small. Something that was not moving. The dragon took a step toward the clinic. The ground shook again. Mirai grabbed Dae-ho's arm tight. "Doctor," she whispered, "what do we do?" Dae-ho did not know. He had no training for this. No book had ever taught him what to do when a dragon appeared at your door. The dragon stopped right in front of the clinic. She lowered her great head until her face was level with the window. Her golden eyes looked at Dae-ho. And then something impossible happened. A tear fell from the dragon's eye. It was a massive tear as big as Dae-ho's fist. It rolled down her scaled cheek and fell to the ground with a splash. Then another tear came, and another. The dragon was crying. Dae-ho felt something change inside him. His fear did not go away, but something else appeared beside it, something stronger. He looked at the small creature in the dragon's claws and understood. It was a baby dragon, a hatchling, and something was very wrong with it. Without thinking, Deho walked to the front door. Mireille tried to stop him. "Doctor, no, it's dangerous." But Deho gently removed her hand from his arm. "Look at her eyes, Mireille," he said softly. "That is not a monster. That is a mother." He opened the door and stepped outside into the rain. The dragon watched him come closer. She did not move. She did not threaten him. She just watched, her tears still falling, mixing with the rain. Deho stopped a few meters away from her. He was so small compared to her. He was like an ant standing before a mountain. But he made himself stand straight. He made himself look into her golden eyes. "I am a doctor," he said. His voice was shaking, but he kept talking. "I help sick animals. Is your child sick?" The dragon made a sound. It was low and deep, like distant thunder, but also soft, like a song. Deho did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Yes, her child was sick. Her child was dying. Slowly, carefully, the dragon lowered her claws toward Deho. She opened them and showed him the hatchling inside. The baby dragon was beautiful, even though it was clearly very sick. Its scales were pale silver, not yet grown into their true color. It was about the size of a large dog. Its eyes were closed. Its breathing was shallow and weak. And there was something else, something glowing inside its chest, a strange purple light that pulsed with an unnatural rhythm. Deho had never seen anything like it. He had never even touched a dragon before. But he was a doctor, and there was a sick child in front of him. He looked up at the mother dragon. Her golden eyes were full of hope and fear. She had come to him, a human, a member of a species her kind had ignored for centuries. She had come because she had heard something, a rumor, a story, that humans could heal anything, that humans never gave up. Deho did not know if that was true. He did not know if he could help this creature. He did not know if he would survive the next hour. But he knew one thing. He had to try. "Bring her inside," he said to the dragon mother. "I will do everything I can." The dragon mother made that sound again, that mix of thunder and song. And even though Deho did not speak her language, he heard what she was saying. "Thank you. Please save my child. She is all I have." Deho turned and walked back to the clinic. The impossible had happened. A dragon had come to a human for help. And now, in a small veterinary clinic on the edge of a frontier colony, the fate of two species was about to change forever. The clinic was too small for the dragon mother to enter. She was simply too big. Her head alone was larger than the front door, so she did something that surprised Deho. She carefully, gently, passed her dying hatchling through the doorway and placed her on the floor of the clinic. Then the mother stayed outside, her massive head pressed against the window, watching everything that happened inside. The rain continued to fall on her scales, but she did not seem to notice. Her golden eyes never left her child. Deho knelt down beside the baby dragon. Up close, he could see how bad the situation really was. The hatchling's breathing was very weak. Her silver scales had lost their shine. They looked dull and gray. And that strange purple light inside her chest was pulsing faster now, like a second heartbeat that did not belong. "Mirai," Deho said, "I need you to get me the scanner. The big one." Mirai was standing near the wall, her face pale with fear, but she was a good assistant. She pushed her fear down and ran to get the equipment. In less than a minute, she was back with the medical scanner. Deho turned on the scanner and moved it over the hatchling's body. The screen showed him things he had never seen before. The baby dragon had 2 hearts, not one. She had 3 lungs. Her bones were hollow like a bird's, but much stronger. Her blood was not red like human blood. It was gold, like liquid metal. But there was something else, something that made Deho's own heart grow cold. In the center of the hatchling's chest, between her 2 hearts, there was a crystal. It was about the size of a human fist. It was purple and black, and it was growing. The crystal was spreading through the baby dragon's body like a disease. It was wrapping around her hearts. It was blocking her blood vessels. It was killing her. "What is that?" Mirai whispered, looking at the screen. "I do not know," Deho admitted. He looked up at the Dragon Mother through the window. What happened to her? What is this thing inside her? The Mother Dragon made a series of sounds. They were beautiful sounds, like music made of thunder. But Daiho could not understand them. Wait, Mirai said suddenly. She ran to her desk and grabbed a small device. I have a universal translator. It is not very good, but maybe it can help. She turned on the device and held it up toward the Dragon Mother. The dragon made her sounds again. This time, the translator spoke in a mechanical voice. Crystal, parasite, very old enemy. Our healers cannot remove. They try, but child dies if they try. The crystal has wrapped around her hearts. Daiho felt a heavy weight in his stomach. So your healers cannot remove it because it is too dangerous? The translator worked again. Yes. Our magic does not work. The crystal feeds on magic, grows stronger. We have tried for 3 days. Nothing works. She has only hours left. 3 days. This poor mother had watched her child die slowly for 3 days. She had seen her own healers fail, and in her desperation, she had done something that no dragon had ever done before. She had come to a human. Why me? Daiho asked. Why come to a human? The Dragon Mother's golden eyes seemed to shine brighter. The translator spoke her words. I heard stories. Humans are different. Humans do not use magic. Humans use their hands and their tools. Humans are stubborn. They fight death. They do not accept when something is impossible. I thought, maybe a human could do what we cannot. Daiho stood up slowly. He looked at the dying hatchling. He looked at the crystal on the scanner screen. He looked at the desperate mother outside his window. The dragons were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They had built empires when humans were still living in caves on Earth. They had magic that could move stars. They had technology that humans could not even imagine. And this mother, this proud dragon, had come to him, a simple veterinarian in a small clinic on a forgotten colony, because she believed that a human might succeed where dragons had failed. Daiho turned to Mirai. We are going to try to remove the crystal? Mirai's eyes went wide. Doctor, we cannot. You heard what she said. Their own healers could not do it. We do not know anything about dragon medicine. We do not have the right tools. We do not have the right knowledge. We could kill her. She is already dying, Mirai, Daiho said quietly. If we do nothing, she dies. If we try and fail, she dies. But if we try and succeed, he looked at the mother dragon. If we succeed, we save her. He walked to the surgery room and started preparing. Mirai followed him, still arguing. But how? How will you remove something that is wrapped around her hearts? You will have to cut into her chest. You will have to operate on organs you have never seen before. You do not even know what tools to use. Daiho stopped and turned to face his young assistant. You are right, he said. I do not know what I am doing. I do not have the right training. I do not have the right equipment. Everything about this is wrong. He paused. But that is what it means to be human, Mirai. We face the impossible and we try anyway. That is why she came to us. Not because we are the best, but because we do not give up. Mirai was quiet for a long moment. Then she took a deep breath. What do you need me to do? Daiho smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. Help me move her to the surgery room, and then help me save her life. Together, they carefully lifted the baby dragon. She was heavier than she looked, but they managed to carry her to the surgery table. It was a table built for cattle and large colony animals, so it was big enough for the hatchling. Daiho looked at his tools. He had lasers for cutting, he had clamps for holding, he had needles for stitching. All of these tools were made for Earth animals. He did not know if they would work on a dragon, but he would find out. He looked at the scanner one more time. The crystal was still growing. The hatchling's hearts were beating slower. He had maybe 2 or 3 hours before her heart stopped completely. Mirai, he said, I need you to monitor her vital signs. Tell me if anything changes. Her heart rate, her breathing, her blood pressure. Everything. I will, Mirai said. She was scared, but she was ready. Daiho picked up his laser scalpel. It was a tool he had used 1,000 times before. But never like this. Never on a creature like this. Never with so much depending on success. He looked out the window at the dragon mother. She was still there, still watching, still crying. Through the translator, she had told him that her name was not something humans could pronounce, but she had also told him something else. Her daughter's name was Sua, Little Sua, the princess of the Eastern Nebula Dragon clans. This was not just any hatchling. This was royalty. This was the daughter of the Empress herself. Deho did not care. Royal or common, she was still a child. She was still dying, and he was still going to try to save her. He leaned over the small silver dragon on his table. "Hello, Sua," he whispered. "My name is Deho. I am going to help you, but I need you to fight. Can you do that? Can you fight to stay alive?" The hatchling did not respond. Her eyes remained closed. Her breathing remained weak. But Deho thought just for a moment that one of her claws twitched. As if she had heard him, as if she was saying yes. "Good girl," he said, and then he began the impossible surgery. The first cut was the hardest. Deho had operated on thousands of animals in his career. He had cut open cattle, dogs, birds, and even some alien creatures from other worlds. But he had never operated on a dragon. He did not know how thick her scales were. He did not know how deep to cut. He did not know if his laser scalpel would even work. He took a deep breath. His hand was shaking. He could feel the eyes of the dragon mother watching him through the window. One wrong move and he could kill her daughter. One wrong move and he might die himself. The mother might burn down the entire clinic in her grief and rage. But he could not think about that now. He had to focus. He pressed the laser scalpel against the hatchling's chest and made his first cut. The scales were harder than he expected, much harder. His scalpel, which could cut through steel, only made a shallow line on the dragon's skin. Daiho adjusted the power and tried again. This time the scale opened. Golden blood began to flow. "Her heart rate is dropping," Mirai said from her position at the monitor. "Expected," Daiho said. "Keep watching." He continued to cut slowly and carefully. The hatchling's chest opened under his hands. Inside he saw something amazing. The dragon's organs were beautiful. Her two hearts were like golden jewels, beating in perfect rhythm with each other. Her lungs were silver and shining. Her blood vessels were like rivers of liquid gold. But the crystal ruined everything. It was worse than the scanner had shown. The crystal had wrapped itself around both hearts like a spider's web. Purple tendrils spread through the hatchling's chest, digging into tissue, blocking blood flow, strangling life. The crystal pulsed with its own dark energy, feeding on the dragon's life force. Daiho stared at it for a long moment. How could he remove this? It was everywhere. It touched everything. If he tried to pull it out, he would tear the hearts apart. "Doctor," Mirai said nervously, "what is wrong? Why did you stop?" "It is worse than I thought," Daiho admitted. "Much worse." He looked at the crystal again. He thought about what the dragon mother had said. The crystal fed on magic. Dragon healers use magic to heal, and every time they tried, the crystal grew stronger. But humans did not have magic. Humans had tools. Humans had science. Humans had stubbornness. An idea began to form in Daiho's mind. It was a crazy idea. It might not work, but it was the only idea he had. "Mirai," he said, "I need you to find me the freeze spray, the one we use for cattle surgery." Mirai looked confused, but she ran to get it. A minute later, she was back with a small can of medical freeze spray. It was used to freeze tissue during surgery, to stop bleeding or to preserve organs. Daiho looked at the crystal. It was warm. It pulsed with energy. It was alive in its own way. What if he made it not alive? He pointed the freeze spray at the crystal and pressed the button. A blast of freezing cold hit the purple parasite. The crystal's pulsing slowed. The purple light dimmed. "It is working," Daiho whispered. He sprayed more. The crystal continued to freeze. Its tendrils began to become stiff and brittle. The living, growing thing was becoming dead and breakable. But there was a problem. The hearts were also getting cold. The hatchling's vital signs were dropping fast. "Her hearts are slowing down too much," Mirai shouted. "She is going into cardiac arrest." Daiho stopped spraying. He looked at the frozen crystal. He had only seconds to act. The crystal was frozen, but so were the hearts. If he did not remove the crystal and warm the hearts soon, Sua would die. He grabbed a small tool from his table. It was a laser pick, normally used for removing small objects from animal wounds. He began to carefully break the frozen crystal away from the hearts. The crystal shattered like glass under his touch. Piece by piece, he removed it. But every time he pulled a piece away, the hearts shuddered. Golden blood leaked from tiny holes where the crystal had been attached. "Come on," Deho whispered. "Stay with me, little one." The hours passed. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3. The surgery continued. Deho's hands grew tired. His back screamed with pain. His eyes burned from staring at the tiny blood vessels and crystal fragments. But he did not stop. He could not stop. Mireille brought him water. She wiped the sweat from his forehead. She read him the vital signs every few minutes. And through the window, the dragon mother watched, her golden eyes never blinking, her tears still falling. At some point during the night, Deho heard sounds from outside. Not just the rain, other sounds. He looked up briefly and saw more shadows in the sky. More dragons. They were landing around the clinic, one by one. Warriors with battle scars on their scales. Elders with horns that curved like ancient trees. All of them watching the small human who dared to touch their princess. Deho did not let himself feel afraid. He did not have time for fear. He returned to his work. By the 6th hour, he had removed most of the crystal. But the hearts were weak. They had been without proper blood flow for too long. They were barely beating. By the 10th hour, he had removed all of the crystal, every single piece. The hatchling's chest was clean, but her hearts were failing. They could not recover on their own. By the 14th hour, Deho was using his own hands to massage the hearts, trying to keep the blood flowing, trying to keep the little dragon alive. "Doctor," Mireille said softly, "you need to rest. You have been operating for 14 hours. "I cannot rest," Deho said. His voice was rough. His hands were covered in golden blood. "If I stop, she dies." "But you are exhausted. Your hands are shaking." Deho looked at his hands. She was right. They were shaking badly. But he could not stop. Not now. Not when he was so close. He began to sing. It was an old song, a Korean lullaby that his grandmother had sung to him when he was a child. He did not know why he started singing it. Maybe to calm himself. Maybe to keep himself awake. Maybe to give the little dragon something to fight for. The song was about a mother's love. About how a mother would cross mountains and rivers to protect her child. About how love was stronger than any darkness. As Deho sang, something strange happened. The hatchling's hearts began to beat a little stronger. Not much, but a little. As if the song was reaching her somehow. As if she could hear him. Deho sang louder. His voice cracked and broke. But he kept singing. And the hearts kept beating. Outside, the dragon mother heard the song too. She did not understand the words. But she understood the meaning. This human was fighting for her daughter. This human was giving everything he had. This human refused to let death win. She added her own voice to his, a dragon's song, deep and beautiful, mixing with the human lullaby. The other dragons joined in too, the night filled with music. The music of dragons and the music of humans, singing together for the first time in history. And in the small clinic, on the surgery table, little Sua's hearts beat on. The 18th hour came. Deho's hands were still inside the hatchling's chest, still working, still fighting. He had used every tool in his clinic. He had invented new techniques. He had done things that no medical textbook had ever described. But finally, the hearts were stable. They were beating on their own. They were weak, but they were alive. Deho began to close the chest. His stitches were not perfect. His hands were too tired for perfect. But they were good enough. They would hold. As he made the last stitch, the sun began to rise outside. Golden light filled the clinic. And in that golden light, little Sua opened her eyes for the first time in days. Then, without warning, her eyes closed again. Her heart stopped. The monitor screamed its alarm. Sua had died. Deho stared at the flat line on the monitor. No, not after everything. Not after 18 hours of fighting. Not after all of this. He would not accept it. "No," he said out loud, and he pressed his hands against the hatchling's chest and began to push. Cardiac compression, a technique as old as medicine itself. Push, release, release. force the heart to beat, force the blood to flow. You are not dying today, he told the little dragon. Do you hear me? You are not dying today. Push, release, push, release. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. The dragons outside fell silent. The monitor kept screaming, but Deho did not stop. Push, release, push, release. Daiho's arms burned with exhaustion. His muscles screamed for rest. But he kept pushing. He kept fighting. 7 minutes now without a heartbeat. 8 minutes. The dragons outside were making sounds of grief. They thought it was over. They thought the human had failed. But Daiho was not done. You listen to me, Suwa, he said through gritted teeth. Your mother is outside. She flew across the galaxy to find help for you. She humbled herself before a species her kind has ignored for thousands of years. She cried for you. She begged for you. You are not going to let her down. Do you understand? Push, release. Push, release. 9 minutes, 10 minutes. Mirai was crying silently at her station. She wanted to tell the doctor to stop. She wanted to tell him it was hopeless. But she could not speak. She could only watch as this tired, stubborn man refused to accept death. I know you are tired, Deho continued, talking to the hatchling as if she could hear him. I know it hurts. I know it would be easier to just let go. But that is not how this works. Life is not easy. Life is hard and painful and full of struggle. But it is also beautiful. You have not seen that beauty yet. You have not flown through clouds or felt the warmth of stars on your scales. You deserve to feel those things, Suwa. You deserve to live. Push, release. Push, release. 11 minutes. The longest 11 minutes of Deho's life. His arms were numb now. He could barely feel his hands. But he kept going. Because that is what humans did. They kept going. And then, at 11 minutes and 17 seconds, the monitor changed. A beep. Just one small beep. A tiny spike on the flat line. Deho pushed again. Another beep, then another, and another. The heartbeats came faster, stronger. The line on the monitor began to jump with rhythm. Not one heart, both hearts. Both of Suwa's hearts were beating again. Yes, Mirai shouted. She is back. Doctor, she is back. Deho did not celebrate. Not yet. He kept his hands on the hatchling's chest, feeling the hearts beat under his palms. They were weak. They could stop again at any moment. He needed to be sure. 1 minute with a heartbeat. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. The hearts kept going. Slow but steady. Alive. Daiho finally removed his hands. He stepped back from the table. His legs gave out under him and he fell into a chair. Every part of his body was screaming with exhaustion. He had been awake for more than 20 hours. He had performed the longest surgery of his life, and he had brought a dead dragon back to life. Mirai, he whispered, check her vitals. Full check. Mirai wiped her tears and ran the scanner over the hatchling. Heart rate is low but stable. Blood pressure is coming up. Brain activity is normal. She is going to be okay, doctor. She is going to live. Deho closed his eyes. Relief washed over him like warm water. He had done it. Against all odds, against all logic, against everything that said it was impossible, he had done it. A sound came from outside. It was a dragon sound, but different from any Deho had heard before. It was high and beautiful and full of joy. The Dragon Mother. She was crying again, but not with grief this time, with happiness. The translator device still sitting on Mary's desk spoke the mother's words. My baby, she lives. Thank you, human, thank you. Other dragons took up the cry. The sound filled the morning air. Dragons who had spent their whole lives ignoring humans were now singing with joy because one human had saved their princess. But the best sound came later, about an hour later, when little Suwa finally woke up. She opened her eyes slowly. They were gold, like her mother's eyes, but brighter, newer. She looked around the strange room with confusion. She did not know where she was. She did not recognize the machines or the tools or the walls. Then she saw Deho. The human was sitting in a chair beside her table. He looked terrible. His clothes were covered in her golden blood. His hair was messy. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. But he was smiling at her. "Hello, little one," he said softly. "Welcome back." Sua made a sound. It was small and high, like a bird chirping. She tried to move, but Deho gently held her down. "Easy," he said. "You had a very big surgery. You need to rest." The hatchling looked at him with those golden eyes. She did not understand his words, but she understood something else. She understood that this human had helped her. She understood that she had been in darkness, and this human had brought her back to the light. She reached out with one small claw and touched Daiho's hand. Daiho felt tears come to his own eyes. He had saved many animals in his career. He had felt gratitude from many creatures. But nothing compared to this moment. This tiny dragon, this princess from the stars, was thanking him in the only way she knew how. "You are welcome," he whispered. Outside, the dragon mother saw this through the window. She saw her daughter touch the human's hand. She saw the connection between them. And she made a decision that would change everything. She called for her guards. The dragon warriors came to her side immediately. "Send word to the council," she said. "Tell them what has happened here. Tell them that a human has done what our greatest healers could not. Tell them that a human has saved the princess of the Eastern Nebula clans." The warriors flew away to deliver the message. But the mother was not done. She called for her advisors next. The old dragons, the wise ones who knew the ancient laws. "I want to speak to this human," she said. "I want to honor him properly." The advisors looked worried. "My empress," one of them said, "we cannot honor a human. The old laws forbid it. They are not like us. They are young, they are primitive. They do not understand our ways." The empress turned her great head to look at the advisor. Her golden eyes burned with intensity. "This primitive human just did something that our entire civilization could not do. He saved my daughter. He asked for nothing in return. He risked his own life to help a creature he had never seen before." She paused. "Tell me, advisor, how is that primitive?" The advisor had no answer. "The old laws were made in old times," the empress continued. "Times when we did not know humans, times when we judged them without understanding them. Those times are over. This human has earned my respect. He has earned the respect of our entire species. And he will receive it." The advisors bowed their heads. They knew better than to argue with the empress when her mind was made. Inside the clinic, Deho had no idea what was happening outside. He was too tired to care. He had moved to a small couch in the corner of the room and was trying to rest. But he could not sleep. Every few minutes, he would look at Sua to make sure she was still breathing, still alive. Mireille brought him food. He ate without tasting it. She brought him water. He drank without thinking. She brought him a blanket. He wrapped it around himself but still could not sleep. "Doctor," Mireille said gently, "you need to rest. I will watch her." "I know," Deho said, "but I cannot stop watching her. What if something goes wrong? What if the hearts stop again?" "Then I will wake you. I promise." Deho looked at his young assistant. She had been amazing tonight. She had faced her fear and done her job. She had helped him save a life. "You did well tonight, Mireille," he said. "I could not have done this without you." Mireille smiled. "I learned from the best, doctor." Deho finally closed his eyes. Not to sleep, just to rest them for a moment. But as soon as they closed, sleep took him. Deep, dreamless sleep. The sleep of someone who had given everything they had. And while he slept, little Sua watched him. Her golden eyes followed his breathing. Her small heart felt something new, something warm, something that dragons rarely felt for creatures outside their own kind. Trust. She had been in the darkness. She had been dying. And this strange creature, this human, had pulled her back. He had fought for her. He had sung to her. He had refused to let her go. Sua did not understand what a human was. She did not know about Earth or colonies or veterinary clinics. But she understood one thing. This human was her friend, and she would never forget it. 6 months had passed since that rainy night when a dragon mother landed in front of a small clinic on New Busan. Daiho stood in front of a mirror in his small apartment, trying to fix his clothes. He was wearing something he had never worn before, a formal suit, specially made for this occasion. It was dark blue like the scales of the Empress herself, with silver threads running through the fabric. "You look ridiculous," he told his reflection. "You look fine," Mirai said from behind him. She was also dressed formally, in a long silver dress. Her short black hair was combed neatly, and she was smiling. "You look like someone who is about to make history." Deho turned to face her. "I am a veterinarian, Mirai. I fix sick animals. I do not make history." "You already made history, Doctor. 6 months ago, when you saved Suwa." Mirai walked over and adjusted his collar. "Now you just have to accept the reward for it." The reward? Deho still could not believe it. The Dragon Council had invited him to their home world. Not just invited him, they were going to honor him, a human. The first human in history to receive such recognition from the dragon species. The news had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Reporters from every planet wanted to interview him. Politicians wanted to shake his hand. Scientists wanted to study his techniques. But Deho had refused them all. He was not interested in fame. He had just done his job. But he could not refuse the Dragon Council. The Empress herself had asked him to come. And after what she had trusted him with, after she had given him her dying daughter and begged him to help, he could not say no to her. A sound came from outside the apartment. It was a familiar sound now, the sound of dragon wings. Deho looked out the window and smiled. A small silver shape was flying toward his building. It moved fast, dodging between other buildings, doing loops and spins in the air, showing off. Suwa had grown a lot in 6 months. She was bigger now, about the size of a horse. Her silver scales had darkened into a beautiful shade of pearl gray. Her wings were strong and wide, and she was healthy, completely, perfectly healthy. She landed on Deho's balcony with a happy chirp. Her golden eyes found him through the window, and she pressed her face against the glass. Deho laughed and opened the balcony door. "Good morning, little one." Suwa immediately pushed her head inside and nuzzled against Deho's chest. She made happy sounds like a cat purring, but deeper and more musical. She had been doing this every day for the past 6 months, flying from wherever her mother was staying to visit Deho, sitting with him while he worked, following him around the clinic, sleeping at his feet. The other dragons found it strange. Princesses were supposed to be serious and dignified. They were not supposed to act like pets with humans. But Suwa did not care what other dragons thought. Deho was her friend, her savior, her favorite person in any galaxy. "Are you ready for today?" Deho asked her, scratching the scales behind her ears. Dragons loved being scratched there. Suwa chirped again and pulled her head back outside. She gestured with her wing toward the sky, toward the waiting ship that would take them to the dragon homeworld. I know, Deho said. "I am coming." He took one last look around his apartment. Everything was packed. The clinic was closed for the week. Mirai would be coming with him. Everything was ready. But still, he felt nervous. He was about to meet the Dragon Council, the leaders of the most powerful species in the galaxy. What was he supposed to say to them? How was he supposed to act? "Just be yourself," Mirai said, reading his thoughts. "That is all they want. The real you. The stubborn veterinarian who would not let death win." Deho nodded slowly. "Let us go then." The journey to the dragon homeworld took 3 days. Deho spent most of that time with Suwa. She showed him everything on the ship, the observation deck where you could see the stars, the garden room where dragon plants grew in artificial sunlight, the kitchen where dragon chefs prepared meals that were surprisingly delicious for humans. The Empress traveled on the same ship, but she stayed in her own quarters most of the time. She was preparing for the ceremony. But once, she came to see Deho. She found him in the observation deck, watching the stars pass by. She approached him slowly, her massive form somehow graceful in the enclosed space. "Dr. Park," she said through the translator, "may I speak with you?" Deho turned and bowed. He had learned that dragons appreciated bows. "Of course, Your Majesty." The Empress settled down beside him, her golden eyes looking out at the stars. "I never thanked you properly," she said, "for what you did that night. You thanked me many times, Your Majesty." The Empress said. "Words are easy. I wanted to thank you with something more." She paused. "I wanted to tell you a story, the story of why I came to you." Daiho waited in silence. Dragons live for a very long time, the Empress continued. Thousands of your human years. We have seen empires rise and fall. We have watched stars die and be born again. In all that time, we have learned one thing. We are alone. We have great power, but that power separates us from others. Other species fear us. They worship us, but they do not understand us. She turned to look at Daiho. When Sua became sick, I felt more alone than I have ever felt. My healers could not help. My magic could not help. I was watching my only daughter die, and there was nothing I could do. Tears began to form in her golden eyes. Then I heard a story about humans, about how they faced impossible situations and refused to give up, about how they loved their children so fiercely that they would move mountains to protect them. I thought, if any species could understand a mother's desperation, it would be humans. She reached out with one claw and gently touched Daiho's shoulder. I was right. You did not see a dragon when you looked at my daughter. You saw a sick child who needed help, and you gave that help without asking for anything in return. Daiho felt his own eyes growing wet. I just did what any doctor would do. No, the Empress said firmly. You did what a good person would do, and for that I will be grateful for the rest of my very long life. The ceremony took place in the Great Hall of the Dragon Council. It was a massive space carved from a single mountain of crystal. Light streamed through the walls, creating rainbows everywhere. Hundreds of dragons filled the hall, all watching as Daiho walked toward the central platform. He felt very small, a single human among giants, but he walked forward with his head held high. Miri walked beside him, her hand brushing against his for support, and above them, flying in slow circles, was Sua. The princess refused to leave his side, even for the ceremony. The Dragon Council sat on high thrones at the front of the hall. 7 ancient dragons, so old that their scales had turned white with age. They looked at Daiho with eyes that had seen the birth of stars. The Empress stood beside the council. She was the one who would speak. People of the Nebula clans, she began, her voice carrying through the hall without any need for technology. For thousands of years, we have lived apart from other species. We believed we were above them. We believed we had nothing to learn from them. We were wrong. She gestured toward Daiho. This human, Dr. Park Daiho, came to our kind in our darkest hour. When our princess was dying, when our magic failed, when all hope seemed lost, he did not turn away. He used his skill, his courage, and his stubborn human heart to do what we could not do. He saved my daughter. He saved our future. The hall was completely silent. Every dragon was watching. Today, I asked the council to do something that has never been done before. I asked them to name this human as kin of scale and fire, to welcome him into our family, to honor him not just as a friend, but as one of us. The council members looked at each other. Then one by one they nodded. The oldest council member rose from his throne. His voice was like thunder rolling across mountains. Dr. Park Daiho, the Dragon Council accepts the Empress's request. From this day forward, you are kin of scale and fire. You are welcome in our halls, on our worlds, in our hearts. You and your descendants forever. The hall erupted in sound. Dragons roared and sang. The crystal walls vibrated with their voices. And in the middle of it all, Daiho stood with tears running down his face. Sua landed beside him and pressed her face against his chest again. She chirped happily as if to say, I told you everything would be okay. After the ceremony, Daiho and the Empress talked about the future. They agreed to create something new. The first Human Dragon Medical Institute, a place where humans and dragons would work together, learning from each other, healing each other. Mirai would be the first human student. She would learn dragon medicine and teach human techniques. And Daiho would lead the institute, training a new generation of healers who saw no borders between species. As they flew back to New Busan, Daiho looked out the window at the stars. So much had changed. A few months ago, he was just a tired veterinarian in a small clinic. Now he was building bridges between civilizations. But when he looked at Sua, sleeping peacefully beside him, he realized that nothing had really changed at all. He was still just a doctor, still just someone who wanted to help. still just a stubborn human who refused to let death win. That night, he had saved one small dragon. But in doing so, he had shown the entire galaxy something important, something that humans had always known, but that other species were only beginning to understand. Love was stronger than fear. Compassion was more powerful than magic. And sometimes the most extraordinary things came from the most ordinary people. As the ship carried him home, Diho closed his eyes and smiled. He did not know what the future would hold. He did not know what challenges waited ahead, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, he would face it the same way he faced that rainy night 6 months ago, with courage, with stubbornness, and with an open heart, because that was what it meant to be human. And that, as it turned out, was exactly what the universe needed.